And welcome back to Insemination, the podcast that is all things donor conceived. My name is Laura High, your chaotic sperm donor baby of the podcast world. We have an incredibly important episode for you to listen to. Many of you, if you follow me on social media, have seen that I've been interacting and sharing Sunny in Season's videos, or also known as Angela. Angela is a former egg donor who was recently diagnosed with HHT, which is a very serious genetic illness, and she was recently diagnosed and she's actively trying to find the families that used her eggs to update them about her new medical history. The reason that she's gone so public with this is because the donor agency she initially went through has now been dissolved. So she's been reaching out to clinics, trying to contact lawyers, trying to call anybody she can to update these families. So obviously, sometimes we gotta use social media to our advantage, and that's what she has been doing. So she is our guest on this podcast today to share her message and also share her experience about being an egg donor and things that she would have changed if she would have done it all over again. So I'm so excited for you all to listen to Angela's story and get all the information that you need in case by any chance you know these recipient parents and we can confirm that they can get this information to them. And another big announcement, we have launched DCP Data, a new resource to find your donor-conceived siblings, get updated medical history, and participate in surveys to better help your donor-conceived community. We are so excited about this launch for so many reasons. One, please check out the video that I made on it. It is on all of my social media platforms. Please go take a look. But basically, the interface is so friendly to use. It allows you to type in all of your information. You type in your clinic, your bank number very easily, and it will help you find all of your siblings. If you don't have a bank number that, like myself, don't worry. DCP Data has also partnered with DNA Angels. You will go on a queue for DNA Angels to help you find your donor so that you can then be matched with your other siblings and create a pod and find the information that you need out. Everything is customizable. So if you want to find new siblings, you don't want to find new siblings, you only want medical history, whatever it is, you get to customize how much information you're putting into it and how much you're getting out from it. And best news of all, it's accessible. It is only $9.99 a year. That is it. I know burritos that cost more than that. So we have something that can be very, very financially accessible for our entire community. I am very excited about that. It is also international. So you can find your siblings from all over the world because all these banks are selling sperm, eggs to everywhere on this globe, and this can allow you to find every single one of them. The link to DCP Data is in the caption. Please sign up. The board for this incredible program is incredibly diverse. We have recipient parents, donor-conceived people, donors, mental health advisors, and I am as well on the board. And I am so excited for this launch. But please go watch the video that I made on my social media to get all of the information, because right now we got to get to this episode. And before we do, please know I've got amazing stand-up shows coming up. I have amazing shows in New York and New Jersey this month, but next month I'm going to be in Cleveland and in Washington, D.C. Go check out my ticket links, which are available on my website. But now, let's go talk to Angela. Well, welcome to the podcast, Angela. How are you doing tonight?
I'm amazing. How are you?
I'm good. How does it, you have gone viral. Did you expect to go viral for being an egg? Like, did you think that it was going to get this big when you first posted that video?
I certainly had thoughts. I had recently had a video that made it to like 10,000 people or something, and
Yeah.
I was like, ooh, people like my stuff. And so, my thing that I do, I dance every day.
You're a fabulous
I'm
dancer, by the way.
going through a lot, and it makes me feel better all the time. And so I force myself to dance every day, and I film it and I put it online with notes about what I'm going through or, whatever it is. And so when I filmed it, I was just like, this is my daily dance party thing. And I sat down and I had been sort of putting a lot of effort into finding families for a few weeks and thinking about it. And I was like, this is the time. I'm going to put it out there. Obviously, the dancing and what I'm looking for and what my goal was were not cohesive. But that was
Thought
kind
they
of the
were.
point.
I thought it was absolutely like when it's TikTok, like of course you're gonna do a dancing video.
Right.
And I felt I personally, like any of the people who had was like, "No, you shouldn't be dancing during this." I'm like, you don't understand how visual media works, and how to get people's attention and how to hold an audience. I thought you did a killer job, and I was. We should actually count how many times I was tagged in your video.
We
I
should
mean,
because it was a lot.
I was really too, but it was like after I swear the 200th time, it was like, guys, I'm here. I'm like, I promise we're in communication.
I know. I was like, does anybody scroll through the comments
No,
and just see?
no,
The answer is
never do.
obviously no.
No, no, people don't even watch the whole video before they comment.
Oh, that's for sure true.
Yeah, what? Oh, absolutely not. We don't have yeah, no, it's I the amount of times where like I'll post a video and someone will like post a comment and I'm like, like I answered your question three-quarters of
In
the
the
way
video.
in the video if you just like literally watched it. But like, hey, I get it. I got ADHD, it's
Oh,
fine. But what I would love to do is walk through how we got here with you because I want to hear your full story about your egg donation process, why you chose to be an egg donor, and then through what you're currently going through right now. Um, because I think it's a story that happens a lot, but we don't actually hear it from the egg donors. We don't hear it from the donor's perspective a ton. Uh,
yeah.
so I'd love to start at the beginning as to how you decided to donate your eggs.
Yeah, my first donation was in 2010, so it's been a few years. I was living in San Francisco. I had moved out there to go to circus school. And I was working, I was living in a little apartment in the absolute worst part of the city. I was trying to find my way. And I was volunteering a lot actually. For I did some research trials and I was volunteering it with the homeless population and doing some things like that. And I found out about egg donation for the first time. And I think it played into my desire to help people, to be altruistic, but also I wasn't sure that I wanted to have children of my own. And so I think it was like multifaceted, I guess would be a good way of putting it for
I get
sure.
that. Yeah.
Um, and of course, like, you know, altruism aside, like San Francisco is an expensive city. And so, having a few thousand extra dollars, although the way that the IRS taxes that, I think is criminal. Um, that's a different story for a different day.
Yes.
Um,
Taxing you on your eggs.
yeah. I mean, their reasoning is that you're not allowed to pay for body parts, right? So you're being paid for your time,
Hmm.
which is totally true. But to not pay attention to or take into consideration the fact that you put yourself through so much by pumping yourself full of hormones
Yep.
and like my experience after donating was very hard. Um, I think is missing the point a little bit, I guess.
I no, that's the thing that drives me crazy, like about how like these clinics, agencies, and banks like come onto social media and they sell egg donation like you're getting a haircut, and it's like
Right.
it's an incredibly invasive procedure that fucking hurts.
I mean, it is surgery, and I know that it's like minimally invasive, but the process that your body goes through after you remove the eggs is crazy.
Yeah,
It is
absolutely.
more painful than most of pregnancy, in my experience. It's awful. So, I also think that is really, I mean, it's wrong to sell it like, oh, hey, just do this thing and it's not going to affect you, and you're going to get 5,000, 8,000, $10,000, whatever it is, and not fully inform those young people, I think
Yeah.
is criminal.
I would agree. I don't believe they're being honest about when they do their version of the Dancy videos, but I think their version of Dancy is little more suspect. But
Yeah.
so in 2000, how, if you don't mind me asking, how old were you when you did your first cycle?
Yeah, I was 23.
Hmm.
Yeah, 23.
Um,
Oh, go ahead.
no, no. So you were 23, and did you like, was there a poster on a bus? Like, how did you find this?
I honestly don't remember like how I headed down that route. I would assume that maybe while I was doing some I was in a couple research trials. You know, I had some brain scans and things, and like participated in a few things at UCSF and at the general hospital there.
Mhm.
It wouldn't surprise me if I saw something about it at one of those places and looked it up online. But I honestly don't remember like how I landed at this is something that I want to look into.
Hmm.
Um, but
So then you so who so the it was the San Francisco donor agency that you first contacted?
Yeah, San Francisco Donor Network.
Sorry, Donor
I
Network.
believe I found them online and I filled out some sort of like survey about me, whatever. They asked general information and specific information, kind of both, about your situation, who you are, how old you are, your education, things like that. So I know that I filled out essentially a donor profile and uploaded some pictures. And then really very quickly, I think within like 2 months, I got a response from the owner of the agency. They asked more questions. I had a psychological evaluation and I was matched with a family.
Now, I always want to like go back on this because I think that this is really important to kind of go over is when you were filling, because I know you said that you had a psych eval, but like how much background check did they do? Like how much, if you hypothetically, if you filled that donor profile with like a couple of lies, would anyone have found out?
I honestly don't know because I didn't. Um, I know they asked some pretty in-depth information about like my work history
Mhm.
and my education background. And I believe I gave them like identifying information like my social security number and things like that. So theoretically, they could have done a background check. I don't specifically remember signing anything saying that they could. Um, but they had all the information necessary to check it in on those things, I guess. Um, so I'm not sure, honestly. I've wondered about that over the years. Like, could I have conflated the truth and got away with it? Not that that's something that I wanted to do, but more from that
No.
perspective that you're coming from, like how how much do they check into what people are saying about themselves? And I don't know. Yeah.
And what was the genetic testing like that you did?
Yeah, so for all of my donations, I had a genetic panel done. Um, I probably could find the records. I believe they checked for somewhere between like 40 and 50 of the most common genetic diseases like cystic fibrosis, hemophilia, major things that are also relatively common.
Yeah.
And I did come back. So I am a carrier for cystic fibrosis,
Oh,
but
me
that is,
too.
yeah, so that's an autosomal, not dominant. What's the other word that I'm looking for?
Recessive?
Recessive gene, yes. So both parents have to both carry it, and then that gene has to be passed on, but you have multiples. So even if both parents have it, there's still only a 50% chance that a child would have it.
Mm.
So being a carrier for cystic fibrosis isn't like an automatic, you're out of here because like your kids aren't going to be healthy. It's more like, let's test the dad. If dad's not a carrier, then it's not even an issue. The worst thing that's going to happen is that the children are going to be carriers. So it came back for that, and it came back for a blood disorder. Uh, I'm a carrier for a blood disorder that makes it so that you have a buildup of iron in your blood. But again, that's also a recessive gene, so it's not like a big deal, as long as the other parent isn't a
Hmm.
carrier.
Okay, so we did the panels, you got matched, and did you have a choice in terms of being anonymous, open ID, known from birth? What were your choices and what did you land on?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess technically I had a choice. Um, but I think that the way that it was posed to me was more or less like these families just want to have kids. They don't want interference. And most of them say they want an anonymous donation. So if you're not going to be anonymous, then you're not going to get matched, was sort of I don't know if that was exactly what was said to me, but that was the narrative.
Got it.
And so I believe all of my donations, except for one, from the beginning, said that they wanted an anonymous donation. One of them had said maybe we would do a partially or an open donation, and then they changed their minds.
Mm. Okay. And so then we get to the so you're matched and now you start going through the process. Um, do how much were you warned about side effects of being an egg donor? What was
Yeah,
communicated?
I mean, I was told about the side effects and the psychological evaluation. They did go pretty into depth with things that have not been issues for me. I think it's mainly because they still don't really know exactly how egg donation affects people. And so there were a lot of questions like, if you weren't able to have your own children, would you be upset? Would you hold a grudge? Like, how would you feel about that? Things like that. Um, and then as far as like the side effects of being a donor, I know that they ran through a list and they told me a little bit about, I think it's called OHSS,
Yep.
ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome.
Hmm.
So they told me more or less what that was, but they were like, oh, it's like super rare. You're gonna be fine. Like,
I have literally the amount of egg donors I've spoken to who are like, yeah, I was overstimulated and then they called me in again.
yeah, yeah. No, so every single one of my donations, I had some level of fluid retention and over like hyperstimulation afterwards.
Are you
Um,
every
I
single one?
question now after my every single one. After my third donation, that was the worst. I actually looked 6 months pregnant because I had so much fluid retention in my abdomen.
You wait,
Um,
you overstimulated after every single donation and they
yeah.
still kept calling you back.
Oh yeah. I mean, they didn't classify it as hyperstimulation. But in retrospect, and knowing what I do now about the industry, I doubt very much that if I had seen another doctor, that would have been what they said.
Oh my God, I hate it here. I hate it. Yeah. God. So for anybody who's a little, OHSS, ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome, it can be a side effect of egg retrieval, and it can get very serious very fast. And from what it's never something I've experienced. I've never done egg retrieval, but I have been told, and I'd love Angela for you. I've been told like it is more painful than childbirth. Like it can get to that level.
Yeah, so when I said earlier that the reaction my body had after retrieving the eggs was worse than most of, pregnancy, that's accurate. I was
Yeah.
more uncomfortable. I was in more pain afterwards than I was through the well, 8.5 months of pregnancy or whatever that I have had. I don't know that I would say it was more painful than childbirth, but mine did not get to an emergency status. It got pretty bad. But then my body was able to eliminate the fluid and I recovered. So
Oh my God. And so with your first one, you're doing, do you know how many eggs were retrieved?
So I couldn't tell you exactly, like on a case by case basis, how many eggs I retrieved each time, but I know once it was like 57.
Whoa.
Um, and I think my lowest number was still like about 40, 39, 40, somewhere around there. And
That's a lot
every
of eggs.
time the doctors were like, high five, this is so impressive. And I was like, is this a good thing? Because it doesn't maybe feel like a good thing.
It feels like you're taking a lot out of me. Maybe that's
Yeah.
why I keep overstimulating. But hey,
No joke, right?
yeah,
Like I know now, from through my background, through my own research, there are ways to prevent that. And they didn't take those.
the way that they treat egg donors specifically is like I find to be one of the slimiest acts, and it's just it's criminal to me, and it's something where like because we still to this day haven't done any studies into the long-term side effects into egg donation, which is terrifying because we have enough anecdotal evidence that is scary enough, and then it's like no, we need to go do this for seriously.
Yeah.
um how have you been like has there anything popped up for you that you I would and again we say this allegedly, we say this is anecdotally, we don't know, that you're like, oh, I'm wondering if that was connected to the egg donation.
I feel fortunate in that I don't feel like I've had any side effects or
Good. Okay.
long-term issues. Yeah, I mean, I've had some hormonal issues, but I could also tie those to like pregnancy, and I didn't have any issues getting pregnant with my kids. So I don't
Amazing.
feel like I've probably suffered long term so
Okay.
far.
That's we will take that. I will happily. So we did our first one. And how and so you did that, you overstimulated, and then how long between your first retrieval to your second retrieval?
Yeah, it was about 3 years between.
Wow.
So I was in San Francisco. I donated there. I moved around quite a bit. I was contacted in between those 3 years to see if I wanted to donate for other couples. And I was in Florida at the time. And so I was like, nope, I can't travel back to San Francisco. That's not realistic. And
Mhm.
I was broke,
Yeah.
I was in my 20s and doing my thing. So it was like, that's not financially feasible. Sorry.
Yeah.
And then in 2013, I was living in Utah, but I was also traveling back and forth a little bit to San Francisco. And they contacted me again to see if I wanted to donate to another couple. And at that point, it made sense because I was already kind of going back and forth. And so I donated again in 2013 through the same agency.
Okay. And then and you said your third time was the really bad.
That
Uh
was the worst by far. Yeah.
and you said that it was like you looked like you were like 6 months pregnant was what you
Oh
said?
yeah, I have pictures where I was bigger than I was when I was 6 months pregnant with my daughter. So by the time I had my third donation, that was 2016, and I had a 2 year old at the time.
Oh my God.
Um, and so I went out to San Francisco. I donated. I was living full time in Utah at the time, and I went out to San Francisco for 5 or 6 weeks
Hmm.
to do the whole process and donate. And I have pictures of myself with my toddler holding her hand, and I looked 6 months pregnant. Like I am 100% sure everybody at this park that we were at thought I was pregnant.
Oh my God. And
Yeah.
I can't believe you were like standing in that much pain, I'm assuming.
I was waddling like I was 6 months pregnant.
God. Ugh. And so then now you donated for the fourth cycle, but this time it was in Dallas. How did you get there?
Yes. Yeah, so I had donated the 3 times with San Francisco Donor Network. And I'm not sure if it was prior to my third donation or after my third donation. At some point, I had also filled out some information with another agency.
Hmm.
Um, I think it was before because my thought was, this agency is based in San Francisco. I'm not living there anymore, but I feel like maybe I'd like to donate another time.
Yeah.
And so I filled out information with another agency, Simple Surrogacy, and they contacted me. And at that point, I was 31, I think. And I didn't think that I could even qualify. They reached out to me, and I think my first response was, well, I'm over 30. Like, my eggs are no good, right? But they said no, like this couple is glad that you've had successful donations, that you are experienced, and they don't really care that you're over 30. And so I went to Texas to donate for that donation. I was in Dallas.
And at this time, like when you are talking to the agencies and everything, is there any like what are people telling you about the future donor conceived child? Like, is anybody talking to you about that intended child? Any asking you how you feel about it? Like, like anything.
In retrospect, I think it's shocking and a little funny how little the product of these decisions, which would be the children,
Hmm.
was talked about.
Really?
Because I
Sure.
don't think, I mean, there were certainly conversations, and I don't know who drove those, whether it was like me being like, oh, yeah, I just want these kids to be loved or, whatever it was. Um, but yeah, the implications of like what's going to happen to these children and what they deserve was never a conversation.
Was there any kind of conversation with this agency of like, hey, if you end up getting diagnosed with something later in life, what do you do? Did
So
that
there was from the other perspective. So I actually don't remember about my fourth donation, but for sure with the first three, there was an actual option on the contract that said if there's a medical issue with the child in the future, if they need a donation, if they have cancer, like anything major with the child, they can reach out to me. And I approved that on all of those
Mm.
um, forms, all of those agreements, because I have always felt a responsibility for those kids. Like myself and the intended parents made decisions that brought them into existence, and they didn't ask for that. And so I think the least that I could do and have always felt like I could do is be an open book. Um, but there was nothing ever, and there was no conversation ever about what would happen to me if I needed to reach out to them.
Mm. And so I guess that kind of leaves us where we are now. If you don't mind talking about your new diagnosis, how did that come about for you?
Yeah, so in December, so it's all very recent. So this past December, 2023, on the 5th, I believe, I went to get an MRI. So I had been seen by an ENT because I have a twitch, a persistent twitch above my eye. And I thought to myself, this is almost certainly just like stress or an overactive muscle group or something along those lines. So I went to the ENT and they agreed. They said, yeah, it's almost certainly a muscle. We could probably do Botox. But before we do that, I'd like you to go get an MRI just to make sure that there's not a artery that's pushing up against a nerve that's causing this, because
Mm.
no amount of Botox is going to fix that. And
Fair
I
enough.
went, okay, yeah, sure. And I almost didn't go get the MRI because in my mind, I was like, this is inconsequential. I'm not going to have brain surgery for an eye twitch,
Yeah.
right? I'll just deal with the eye twitch. But I ended up going anyway. And it turns out this has nothing to do with the eye twitch. It's completely unrelated. But they found what's called an AVM in my brain. And what that is it's called an arteriovenous malformation. And it's a bad connection between arteries and veins where there are no capillary beds. And so typically an artery would attach to a vein via capillary beds, and they kind of look like this. They're all spread out. The
Hmm.
blood goes through there. Your body takes the oxygen out of the blood and slows it down and then puts it out to your veins to go back to your heart and lungs. When you have an AVM, there's no capillary beds. So it's just an artery or multiple arteries, in my case, straight into a vein. So arteries are high blood flow, veins are slower, low blood flow. And so it's essentially a ticking time bomb. The way that I've explained it to people is imagine I've got three arteries feeding one vein in my brain. So if you can imagine dumping three buckets of water into a sink, you can imagine what would happen. It's going to overflow and it's going to take a long time to drain. And so that's exactly why it's high risk. So it leaves me at an extremely high risk of having a stroke or a brain bleed.
Okay.
And so I found out about that and I went down that road and we decided on treatment. So I'm having brain surgery in a couple weeks. But in that process, doing my own research, I found out about this condition called HHT, which stands for hereditary hemorrhagic telangiectasia.
I
And it
didn't
is
even try and pronounce that. When I did your video, I was like, I ain't touching that shit because I'm gonna fuck it up. We're gonna just write this on there because I know my boundaries.
the first dozens of times that I tried to say it. I was like, hereditary hemorrhagic something. I don't know.
HHT.
So I found out about this condition. It can cause these AVMs or bad connections throughout your body. And it's one of the few conditions that can cause AVMs. So most of the time, if you have an AVM, it's congenital. You've had it since birth. But then there is this condition that can cause them to grow. And so I started to look into that and see some of the symptoms and think about my family. And I went, you know what? This isn't, I don't think I'm crazy by saying I might have this.
Mm.
And so I actually went to see an oncologist because radiation is or was an option for my AVM. And as I was speaking with her, I just asked her, is this something that you feel like I could have? And she said, yeah, it sounds like you've got some of the symptoms. I think it's worth getting checked out, seeing a specialist. And so I got an appointment at the Center of Excellence for Excellence. I'm not sure here. I'm fortunate to live like less than 2 miles away from the university where that is. And so I was able to get an appointment there and be seen. And when I saw the doctor there, he looked at all of my symptoms and his response was, I'm 97% sure that you have this.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you need help finding your biological parents? Whether you're donor conceived, adopted, or an NPE, please contact DNA Angels. DNA Angels is a nonprofit team of genetic genealogists that help you identify your biological parents. And this group is run by donor conceived people, adoptees, and NPEs, so they will emotionally have your back during this process. DNA Angels has identified almost 5,000 biological parents since 2019 using test results from Ancestry DNA. And they are a nonprofit because they believe that your financial situation should not stop you from identifying your family. If you are searching to identify and possibly connect with your biological donor or missing parent, please reach out to dnangels.org. Must be at least 14 to apply, have tested at Ancestry, and presumed parents born in the United States of America.
So he said, I'm 97% sure. And I held on to that information for several weeks and started sort of calling around, trying to get a hold of the agencies that I donated with. And I was having no success. And I'm waiting on those results. I actually, right before I logged in for this, got an email from Invitae, which is who is doing my testing,
Mhm.
saying we've got your sample and we're working on it. So I'm really hoping that I have the results saying, here are the 6 mutations that we know how to identify, and we know which one you have. But I don't have that yet. But knowing that, my doctor looked at me, he looked at my symptoms, and the main one that made him say that he was 97% sure were telangiectasias, which are little red spots on your hands, your lips, and inside of your mouth.
Oh, wow.
Um, and he found one. There's no way that you'll be able to see it, but I have one on my fingertip. It's tiny.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I like guarantee you have to be just in the right light to be able to see it. But he found that on my fingertip, and he said, when I find telangiectasias on the bottom sides of people's hands, when I've gathered all of my research, it's shown that those people are more than 10 times more likely to have HHT. And so I feel very confident
Hmm.
because my doctor feels very confident. I'm hopeful that it comes back as one of those 6 variants because that will make it a lot easier for my children, for the donor conceived children, for my family to seek out a diagnosis. But time will tell. And I feel like I'm staring down the barrel of a gun with my brain surgery. And I don't feel like I can gamble on not getting this information out.
I I I completely agree. And the fact that you are thinking about your donor conceived children while you have that weight on you for your brain surgery, that is that's like I'm extremely speechless to think about what you are carrying right now and the fact that you thought of those kids out there. It really it renders me speechless. And I say that because no one thinks of us ever. It just doesn't happen. And I mean, I know recipient parents who have lost their kids because their donors didn't come forward. And I know donor conceived people who found out that their donors died. And I've spoken to donors who are in the same situation as you are right now. And
Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't even, I don't even know.
you and I've had these yeah,
I
but
don't even know what to say or where to start. But I feel the same love for those children that I do for my own. And I know that like they're not mine and I am not raising them. And I was and am fully comfortable with having handed over my genetic material so that people could have families. Um, but I am responsible. And that means caring. Like, I don't see another option. I immediately after getting my diagnosis, obviously I thought about myself first because it's immediately affecting me.
yeah.
And then I thought about my immediate family, and then I thought about those kids. It was like a chain reaction. Like, I don't see any world where I couldn't have thought about them.
I know that I've said this to you many, many times, but again, thank you. It really what you are going through, what is happening in this situation is not uncommon. This actually happens quite a lot. But the fact that you're doing something about it is unique and it is rare and it is something that my community doesn't see a lot of. So thank you. It really it's because like all of obviously like I've been in the private chat rooms of the donor can see people and we are talking about your story and we are texting and everything and everybody has been moved and it is in a way it's actually healing for a lot of us to watch and go, oh my god, a donor can care about us, because so many of us, like my donor never called me back even though we know he's definitely passed stuff on to us. um most of us never get that answer and we're just left terrified or sick. And it's the fact that you're doing this is it really is, it's healing for all of us to know that we've it's possible. So thank you.
I mean, I'm glad, I guess, but I'm also sorry on behalf of all of the other donors who are being shitty people.
Being fucking shitty people, you've heard it first.
I'm sorry
No,
because
it's shitty.
not only do you all deserve better, but like, I try to be an understanding person. I just don't understand that. I just don't.
I don't as well. I don't, but it's like I've had fights with donors because I'm like, you understand, like you've got biological children out there, and they're like, they're not my biological children. Oh yeah, I have screenshots to prove it. Yeah, no, it's a
Do
tough.
you not understand how biology
Nope,
works?
nope. They
I
apparently.
had somebody actually comment on one of my videos saying, I thought when you donated eggs, they removed your DNA and put the parents in. And my response was, I think this is a joke. You're joking, right? And they were like, no, I'm not joking. And I was like, oh, honey, that's not how that works. Like,
Comment as well, and I had to stop and go like, is there because of course, like I'm like, do I not understand biology? Like, am I missing something? Because this is so out of pocket. I'm getting pranked. I'm getting trolled. There's no
right?
way.
I literally waited hours to respond because I was like, this is a joke. Like, they're going to come on here and they're going to be like, ha ha, gotcha, guys.
We got him. Yeah, I've literally had that exact same comment going like, but I thought they put the parents' DNA in, and I'm like, no, no, I've had these.
Like,
Oh
I
my
speechless, literally speechless. I don't even.
god. One of the speaking of comments that you've been getting, a lot of people, because going in your comment section, people have been going like, but didn't the agency test for this? I thought they do genetic testing. And you have said that this is an incredibly rare disease. Could you speak to
Yeah.
that?
So, it's like 1 in 5,000 people have this gene. But in addition to that, it's extremely difficult to get tested for. Like, I had to have a diagnosis before they would even test me for it, and they had to know which 6 genes they were looking for. The delay in diagnosis for people with HHT is 25 years, I believe,
Oh my God.
which means that they have symptoms and it takes 25 years longer for them to get diagnosed.
Oh my God.
So it is rare, but it's also extremely difficult to get a diagnosis. Mostly, I think, because the symptoms of HHT, until you have like a brain bleed or something, the symptoms of HHT can be explained by a lot of other things. It's like,
Mm,
oh, little red spots on my skin, I'm aging, or oh, I have nosebleeds, but I never thought about it. Like, it's not things that point directly at HHT and nothing else.
got
And
it.
so, unless you have that family diagnosis, it can be very difficult to be diagnosed, which is also why I feel like it's extremely important to get this information out while the donor conceived children are still young,
Yeah.
because they like having a diagnosis. I mean, at a minimum, it's going to make their life easier because they'll be able to have regular scans and know about it. Um, but at the most, it could save their lives.
Yeah. Absolutely, as with most of these things do. If anybody has listened from the beginning, please also listen back to my very, very first episode with Vanessa, who was also a former egg donor who was later in life diagnosed with sick sinus syndrome, which is like essentially heart failure. And she realized going back that she was showing signs when she was a teenager. Her son, who she raised, is showing sign he's having a heart monitor at the age of 12.
Wow.
Um, and she didn't realize this until she was in her 30s. And you know, this is what happens. This is why having open contact between the donor and the recipient parent is imperative. Because how
Yeah.
much we could have had this problem solved, it could have been literally a freaking email.
Right. And
And
and honestly, like I started reaching out a few weeks ago and I had even delayed it a while because I was like, I'll wait until I know which gene mutation it is and then it'll be easy. I'll send an email or make a phone call and it will be over. It will be out of my hands.
yeah.
Um, but my initial outreach was not responded to. And so then I reached out some more and not responded to. And I started to go, oh, this might be a much harder process than I thought it was going to be. And I had
Oh,
no idea it was going to be this difficult.
so how did you find out now the San Francisco Donor Network?
Yeah.
That's the one that has dissolved.
Yes.
And that's the one that you like were going through. So that would have had everything.
Yeah. So I went through them for the three of the four donations. And I assumed like the owner, Susan, we spoke a lot. We met in person a lot. She babysat my daughter at one point. Like, I felt like I know her. She's going to help. It's not going to be a problem. And so then I went to reach out to her and I called her because I had her phone number and it was disconnected. And so that was like my first clue that like this place doesn't exist anymore. So then I Googled it and found that for sure this place doesn't exist anymore. And I was like, oh,
Hmm.
crap.
Yeah.
What now? And so I
What
sent an
now?
email and that email wasn't responded to. And after I sent the email, I made my first video. And somebody reached out to me through that video saying, I commented on one of her posts saying that she was retiring and she responded. So maybe try that. And so I went and I found her on Facebook and I commented on her retirement post saying, hey, I donated with you from 2010 to 2016. I need to speak with you. How do I reach you? And she responded that I should email her. And I said, okay, I've already emailed you. Can you check your messages? And I got a response almost immediately saying, hey, it's great to hear from you. Send me more information about this condition, but also I'm traveling for the rest of 2024, and any records older than 10 years have been destroyed. Which honestly just solidified my decision to like go very public.
Yeah, you kind of are left with no option. And
Which I hate. Honestly, I hate it because I don't think Susan is a bad person. I don't think that like
yeah,
anybody involved like is bad, but these policies that only require holding on to medical records for 10 years are bullshit.
yeah.
The fact that people can just disappear and not have an obligation to reach out to these families is bullshit. Like it's all bull. And I'm disgusted and I'm sad and I'm angry.
Well, and this isn't the first time an agency is dissolved. We've had banks, clinics close. And what drives me, like, parents pay typically extra for like an open ID at 18 donor. And then what happens when that agency, that clinic, that bank is gone? You
right?
paid extra for nothing.
Or
Uh,
the records are destroyed.
oh,
Oh, we
my
had a fire.
I had mine went up in a fire apparently.
Yeah,
When I was told
they
that
all do. They all go
yeah,
up in fires. It's crazy, right?
there is a arsonist who really hates the fertility industry and is just actively just like destroying paperwork. It is he is a vigilante of some sort. Really would have liked those medical papers, bud, but so but that it's terrifying. It's terrifying to just suddenly go like, well, shit. And now we have had to have a little bit of a ray of sunshine. And I will 100% call out our friends with Seed Scout, who literally actually I was my literal last podcast episode. Because you did find the names of one of the recipient parents, but because of the anonymity agreement, you were nervous of legally reaching out to them. So I called a couple of places and Seed Scout was like, I'll fucking do it. And this because Danielle, she's a lawyer and everything. So she was like, I'll do it. And I love Danielle. If I ever go missing, Danielle will find me. Like
An
Danielle is
angel, an actual angel.
she's amazing. I swear to God. The woman can work wonders. And so she reached out, they got the news. How did that feel to you to know that the parents got it? They understood. They even said, I'm going to go get my daughter tested right now because I think she might have this.
I mean, you can see my immediate reaction if you want to go run to my TikTok and watch me crying, but um, it was overwhelming. I mean, immediate relief
Yeah.
because I achieved at least one-fourth of my goal.
Yes, we got
Um,
one. We got one down. That's amazing.
yeah, but also like I feel very mixed feelings. I feel very guilty that I potentially pass that on to their child as well. Um, but mostly relief. I mean, I'm just glad that we got the information to them and that they can, now get their child tested and, at least know. I
Yeah.
mean, that's like honestly with this disease is the biggest battle is just knowing.
I mean, for in my person, I say this as a donor conceived person. I do not, everybody has a quote unquote medical history. Everybody has genetic differences. There's no such thing as a perfect donor with absolutely no genetic differences whatsoever. That doesn't
Sure.
exist. The industry loves to perpetuate that their donors are so well tested. They're absolutely like healthy, quote quote, like all that stuff. It's not that's just never we're setting ourselves up for failure.
Yeah.
We're setting ourselves up to actually, really get the kids sick and set them not up for success. Knowledge is power. And it is it is completely inaccurate. It is unreasonable to not have communication set up because, of course, donors are going to get diagnosed with things later in life. We've already seen that. Or maybe the donor's a carrier, and finds out like their family, their sister, their mom has something, and it gets passed on to the kid. That happens. That would happen with any normal couple. But the fact that with the industry, it severs that communication, that's the problem.
Yeah.
That's the issue. You have nothing to feel guilty. Like, okay, yes, you have a genetic difference that happens, but the problem is a lack of communication. That's the problem.
Well, and for sure, I think that that's like part of it. I think the other part is that like I felt like I did everything right. I got tested, I was honest. I did my best to be a good donor, to not have diseases. I don't know. I thought I was clear, right? I was donating under the understanding that like at least as far as I knew, I had good DNA, right? And I agree. Like,
You still have good DNA. Your
sure,
DNA still is good. Like,
sure.
yeah, where it still is. It's you just had something pop up that you had no idea about.
For sure. And I mean, I called my mom after as well and was speaking to her about it. And she was like, well, like I'm going to get tested once we find the variant, and I probably have it, and I probably passed it to you. And do you want me to feel guilty? And I was like, no, of course not. But I don't know. It's that like I was supposed to be good, right? They thought I was good, I thought I was good, and I gave them eggs under that understanding. But then also that roadblock, I think also is a huge part of it, where like I've got my daughter here in the other room. I can take her and get her tested and get her treatment, and it's not a problem. And I'm not super concerned about her because I know.
Yeah.
And that is the big piece.
Yeah. But your genes are still good, and you were I just want to
I
like
agree. I like
you
myself a lot. So
yes. And again, like you were a good, like the fact that you were like literally the fact that you were just fucking honest is amazing to me, because a lot of donors are not. And you apps like you the only the only entity that screwed up here was the industry, and a lot of it is just systemic problems.
yeah, and
Um,
I don't even think it goes back to like people really want to obsess and like hover over those genetic tests.
yeah,
They're imperfect. Even if you were able
absolutely.
to test for everything, they are imperfect. And you're not able to test for everything. It's a
No,
gamble no matter what. The missing piece is that anonymous donation. And I hate that I agreed to it, and I hate that it's industry standard. I hate it now. I understand it.
yeah.
I do. I understand it. You want to have your children and you want to have an uninterfered life with your children. I get that. I totally do. Um, but I don't think anybody's thinking about that health history piece, and that's so important.
And it's something that we always try and talk to recipient parents about, is that one, just practically, as you're saying, the reason that we preach known donors is literally your story is like such an amazing example as to like why you need it no matter what.
I'm the
But
poster child. I don't
you
want to
are
be
the
it, but I
poster.
am.
Yes, but it is. You unfortunately are a phenomenal poster child for this. And but we also tell it's like I understand you, as you said, you're worried about that interference. And what we constantly tell recipient parents is that having a known donor isn't going to cause that interference. It's not what it's going to do. One, remember, love is not pie. It's not finite. You don't run out of love. Your child can have a wonderful, happy, friendly relationship with their donor that can be meaningful, can add in beautiful layers of genetic mirroring for the child, and they still are absolutely going to look at you guys as the parents. It's absolutely achievable. We've watched it happen. And it's just the industry has perpetuated this idea of like, no, you have to keep it separate. It has to be. And that's been only for the industry's sake. The industry operates that way. That's not how we have to do it. And for anything else, it's just not as safe. And that kind of leads me to my kind of my final question to you is, for any, what would you tell any person who's interested in donating, whether it is sperm or eggs? What would be your advice to them?
So I've had friends reach out in the past who wanted to donate, and my advice to them always was do it for the right reasons. If you are doing it for the money, don't do it. If you are doing it because you think it's like some fun weekend gig, don't do it. Like just don't. You're dealing with people's lives, and it's also not an easy process to go through. There's no way in hell I would go through the pain and process that I went through for $8,000. It's ridiculous. It's silly. Um, so just do it for the right reasons, and really do think about like I think that the questions that they asked me in my psychological evaluation are valid. Like, if you want children and you're not able to have them, are you going to be angry? How are you going to feel about that? I think that the asking yourself those questions are like those are really valid questions. Um, because if you would be upset, if you would be angry, if you would regret it, then you shouldn't do it,
Hmm.
like at all. Because there's
I,
no guarantees. There's no guarantees in anything.
there isn't, and especially with just the lack of research when it comes to egg donation specifically, it's like we don't know. We really,
Yeah.
really we have some scary anecdotal evidence, but we just don't know. And for me, it's why I personally, when anyone asks me, they're like, I'm thinking about being an egg donor. Where should I be an egg donor to? And it's why I'm like, at the moment, and this is a very unfortunate thing, I can't promote any egg donation until we do research because we got to protect our egg donors. That's just not fair. And that's a sucky, shitty answer. It is, and I am aware of it. But it's like I'm not gonna go tell anybody that, like, yeah, yeah, you can totally. It's safe to be an egg donor when we've not done the research. Like, I'm not doing that. Those are
I mean,
people's lives.
for sure. And I think like as a whole, I think that's a totally fair perspective. I would do it again.
Hmm.
Not with my condition, but assuming that I didn't have it, I would do it again in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Um, the things that I would change were not my intentions. I think my intentions are good. I'm not upset about the fact that I donated, but I would make sure that it was open, that
Mhm.
we had a way to contact each other outside of any um, organization, because frankly, I just don't trust anyone anymore.
I can't imagine why you might have some trust issues with that. What? How? Out
Whoops.
of everything that you've gone through, I'm sure you're totally like, yes, systems, industry.
Yeah, I love to trust other people to do the right thing. I love it.
Multi-billion dollar industry all the way. Yes. Um,
Yeah, for sure.
so to make sure that everybody has the information, because we're still looking for three other families, just to make sure that we know. So what are again the dates in which you donated and the places? Because we still have three families we gotta find. We gotta make sure that they have these diagnoses. So let's make sure that we everybody has that information.
Yes, absolutely. So, the three donations that we're still working on are 2010.
Hmm.
I'm going to add some information. So, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, I was told that the couple from 2010 spoke Spanish. I don't know if that was their main language or if they were bilingual or what, but I remember the agency saying that they were Spanish speaking. So I donated to them in 2010, and I donated through Kaiser Permanente in Fremont.
Okay.
Um, the second couple was in 2013, also through Kaiser Permanente Fremont. I feel like I remember being told that the wife or the woman might have been an art teacher, or involved in the art industry in some way.
Okay.
We found the couple from 2016.
Yes.
Yay, some success. Uh, Thankful for the internet and good people. And then the last couple was from 2018. I donated to them through Simple Surrogacy in Texas, in Dallas. And I believe I was told that they were Chinese, although I don't know if that's from China, living in China, or just race.
Okay. All right. So everybody, yeah, you need to send this to anybody who is in the Texas, Dallas area, anyone in the San Francisco, California area. Yeah, because these kids, these families need to do this, and Angela needs to rest. You have some healing you got to do, and you've got some surgery you got to be emotionally ready for. And we need to, I feel like as society, we need to like all kind of cumulatively take this off your chest. We're going to go worry about this and find the family so that you can just focus on your kid, your husband, and you getting better. Because that needs to be number one.
Yeah, I would love to just feel at peace about this. I hope that we have answers sooner than later. But I'll continue. Once I recover, I'll have a nice shaved head. I'll be sending out videos.
Nice.
Um, this will continue if it needs to, but it would be really amazing if we could find those other families.
Have you ever had a shaved head before? Or
I have actually.
yeah, okay.
Not with the type of scar that I'm going to have, but I have shaved my head.
Well, know that until you are ready, hopefully we find this soon, but if we don't find all the families till post recovery, know that our community will be still yelling very loudly about it while you are in recovery. We are a very loud group. I will say that about the donor conceived community. We know how to get our voices, how to get heard.
Well, I love that. If there's anything about me, it's not that I'm quiet. So
You will fit right in. I don't know. I feel okay. So like I have my sperm costume. We need to get you an egg costume. That's
let's
what we
go.
need.
I'm
That's what we
ready.
need to do. And that it'll be perfect. You know what? If you're gonna have maybe we can like integrate your scar into like the costume or something. We can
I
make it
love
like an
it.
abstract egg. This will be fabulous. We're gonna have such a great time. But again,
Amazing.
Angela, thank you. Um, seriously. Thank you. This is not unnoticed. And I hope you are reading the comments section. And everybody just telling you, like, oh my God, this is the fact that you're doing this is incredible. This speaks so much to your character. And I completely agree with them. And my favorite comment so far is what was it? You're positively metal.
Oh, yes. That one was good.
Yes,
Let's
you're
go.
metal. Well, oh God, what you're like altruistically metal, like it was just like it was like hands
It was
down,
a good comment. I don't remember either, but I responded and I said I'm a absolutely metal. All I
100%.
remember was that their picture was a piece of toast.
I love it. You got you got called metal by a toast, which I feel like that's still like a very cool term to be being called. Like I don't know what
So
the
cool.
kids' compliments are, cap, bet, or anything, but metal is still awesome.
I mean, according to the internet, I'm pushing 50, so
I mean, look, if you are pushing 50, you look fantastic.
damn good.
I'm good. Actually, well, if you were 23 in 2010, I'm only a couple years behind you.
Yeah, I'm 37.
You look amazing for 37. I still want that your skincare regimen. I'm right behind you. I'm 35. I still love to know what the hell you're doing. But yeah, whoever said that you're pushing 50 they can go kick rocks.
They
Like
were mad about my dancing. Let them be mad.
your moves are fab. I also want to know where you get your whole wardrobe from because it is quite adorable. It is. I
It's
love the patterns.
it's been a long process of throwing out my boring clothes and only buying things that I love.
As you should. That is 100% the answer.
Today it's double leopard print.
Nice. I love it. We have like rainbow. And then, okay, for everybody on who's listening on the podcast, you do need to just take a peek on YouTube and see Angela's clothes because it is quite lovely and it is happy. Well, Angela, thank you again. We are obviously going to be in touch. We're going to keep everybody in touch about this. We're going to keep everyone up to date because we're going to find those families. We're going to get them updated. Um, and Angela, please know that like even though you are not donor conceived, you are part of our community. We've got your back. We're feral as fuck, and we are never not going to stop until we find all of them.
I love it. I'm ready. Let's go. Let's find them. And I'm ready for more chosen family.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's hey, it's more people to love and the I can say that at least the mom who we did get in contact with, she is very very clearly extremely grateful that you are doing this, and I echo that as well.
I'm also grateful for all of the good people, including you, including Danielle. I've had so many people reach out to me, and all I can say is like keep being good people on the internet because it's like restored my faith in the power of the internet. So,
Sometimes the internet wins. Sometimes
right?
you're like, all right, okay, Beyonce's internet, you know what? You win for the day. Good for you. Thank you.
Bay goes country and the internet goes good. I love it.
Have a lovely night and get ready to do some healing because clearly
Absolutely.
we still need your kindness and goodness in the world, and we're not ready to lose it yet.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and I'm looking forward to the journey.
Absolutely. Have a
All
good
right,
night.
thank you.
So, since we recorded this episode, I do have another update. So, we did find the family in 2016. We also found out that the family in Dallas, the pregnancy was not successful and they did not retry again. So, there are no children from simple surrogacy. We have also been told by Kaiser Permanente that one of the other families they were able to track down. We are still waiting on confirmation that they have received the information, but it looks like we're really getting close on finding everybody. So more updates, hopefully all good updates coming soon, but that's where we are. Keep sending this message out because having a public record of this also holds the industry accountable, which is what we need, but also making this public ensures it gives a better chance that these families are going to actually receive it, which is what we want. Thank you for listening, and please help us find Angela's recipient parents. Thank you so much.